Greetings, fellow book lovers, and welcome back to Colin's Corner. Today we will be doing the 24 Bookish questions tag. I was tagged by Sam, and he is a new booktube channel that you guys should definitely go and check out. His channel name is just his name, Sam Harrison. So Sam, thank you so much for the tag. I watched your video and this seemed like a really fun tag to do, but before we get into the tag, we have to go over the answer for the last video's Comedy with Colin segment where I asked you guys the joke, why shouldn't you tell secrets in a cornfield? The answer? Because there's ears everywhere. Alright, enough dilly-dallying, let's get on with this tag. So this is a rapid fire question tag, rapid fire answers, and there are 24 questions. So I have not planned a single one of my answers, but I do have all the questions written down here. And so I'm just going to go quickly because we've got a lot of questions to get to. Question number 1, ebook or physical? Ebooks are awesome, super convenient. You can store a ton of them on one device. You can carry a ton of books on that device everywhere you go. It's super, really easy to make it accessible to read. You can change the fonts, you can change the lighting and everything. So that leads me to my answer of physical books. Now, on a serious note, I am one of the readers that just loves to have a physical book in their hands. I love collecting books. I have the dream to someday pass my books down to my daughter, so I'm gonna have to go with physical books, although e-readers are swiftly growing on me. Question number 2, paperback or hardback? Paperbacks are just all around better to read. Mass market are not my favorite. Typically trade paperbacks are my favorite. Hardbacks though look great on the shelf, but as a reader, I'm gonna have to go with paperback. Online or in-store book shopping? 100% in-store book shopping. Lots of times that I go book shopping in Barnes & Noble, half-price books, Goodwill, Salvation Armies, wherever I'm thrifting, wherever I'm shopping. I don't even buy books a lot of the time anymore because I have so many that I still need to get to. However, I love the feeling of being in a bookstore and just picking books up, searching for different things, not really going in there with much of a plan and just kind of hanging out if I have an hour or two to just spend and browse around. So definitely in-store book shopping. Question number 4, trilogies or series? I love the journey of a really big series and really just getting to know the characters and the world inside and out, becoming familiar with the author's writing style, knowing what to look for foreshadowing, and all this stuff can happen in a big series or in a trilogy, but recently trilogies have been growing on me because it seems like in most of the trilogies that I read, the story doesn't feel drawn out too much at any point in any of the 3 books. And even in some of the series that I know and love so dearly, there are segments in books or entire books where it might feel like it drags a little bit. So for this one, I'm going to have to go currently with trilogies. Question number 5, heroes or villains? I've always been drawn to the villain more so than the hero. I love a good hero, don't get me wrong, but I've always been drawn more to the villain's story, their backstories, why they would be doing something like this. Not that I like them more, but I guess I like disliking them more, and I even love like when the villain wins, and nobody wants that to happen because it makes me angry inside, and I like when books can make me feel emotions like that, so I'm gonna have to go with villain for this one. Question number 6, a book you want everyone to read? It by Stephen King. I read it last October, and a lot of the fall days were the perfect temperature to crack my windows. It was raining. It was such an atmospheric experience for me. Plus, it is some of the best character work that I have personally read. Some of my favorite characters that I've ever personally read. So October's coming up. I'm going to have to go with it. Question number 7. Recommend an underrated book. This is tough. Recommend an underrated book. Let's see. underrated book is going to be, wow, I don't really have a lot of underrated books that I've read recently. So let's go with Becoming a Druid by Mike Molman. I don't think it's underrated. I think it is not as popular as it should be yet. Mike is a self-published author. I have read all the books that he currently has out in the Protectors of the Protani series, and I just backed his Kickstarter for the next book that's coming out, and I think more people should read this. So I'm going to say Becoming a Druid by Mike Molman. The last book you finished, question number 8. The last book that I finished, oh my gosh, is The Fallen Odyssey by Corey McCullough, another self-published author, because I just am in the middle of self-pub, well, towards the end of self-pub September right now. This is a YA portal fantasy that is going to be a tetralogy. It is not all out yet. 3 of the books are out. And I really enjoyed the main character in this one, Justin Holmes. And I'd like to get more eyes on this series. So I'm going to go with The Fallen Odyssey. Question number 9. The last book you bought is Holly by Stephen King, because I thought I pre-ordered it. I've spent the last couple weeks wondering where my copy was. I signed into my Barnes & Noble account to see what the heck was going on, and I realized I never actually pre-ordered it. So I just ordered it today. As of the recording of this video, it might not be when the video comes out, but I ordered it today or yesterday. So yes, Holly by Stephen King. Question 10 is the weirdest thing you've used as a bookmark. This is tough. I am trying to think of the weirdest bookmark I've ever used. Another book. I was doing that recently because I couldn't find any of my bookmarks. I had 2 books on my nightstand, and one day I just started sliding one of the books that I wasn't reading into my other book because I couldn't find a bookmark, and it just stayed that way until I finished the book. So yeah, a book is the weirdest bookmark that I've used to mark my books. Question 11, used books or no? Yes. I love brand spanking new books that look crisp and clean, but they're expensive. And I have found some really cool, I love looking for Stephen King first edition books and just other books, series, authors that I love, finding some cool cover art, some different editions that I don't have or don't see very often. So the last probably 2 years or so, I've really been big on used books and thrifting, obviously if they're in decent condition, but you're saving like 90% of the cost in most scenarios. And you can find some really cool and unique copies to add to the collection, so I'm going to go with used. Question number 12, top 3 favorite genres. Fantasy, science fiction, horror. That one was easy. 13, borrow or buy. I do a lot of both. Less buying recently, more borrowing, and not physically borrowing from the library in the most sense of this. I have 2 apps that I use called Hoopla and Cloud Library that my library card is connected to. So I use those to do a ton of audiobook listening. So I borrow a lot from those and from my local library that way. So recently, borrowing a lot, but in the end, I still like to buy copies of the books that I love the most. So I suppose I'm going to have to go with buy. Question number 14, characters or plot. This is a tough one that I think my balance kind of teeters on from time to time, but when the cookie crumbles, I think that I am much more of a character reader, and here's the reason why. Plots get me very invested and hooked and staying up way too late to read, which are all phenomenal things. However, the thing that sticks with me the most over the course of the past 4 years, really, of just reigniting my fire for reading, is the characters. The characters, the way they made me feel, what they did, the relationships that they had with each other in the book. So characters, I think, are the thing that stick with me the most, and the thing that I can connect to the most in most of the books that I read. So I'm definitely going to go with characters, although I love a fantastic plot, obviously, as well. Chapter 15, long books or short? This is a tough one, and I think I have a couple of different answers. For fantasy, specifically, I haven't read enough sci-fi really to say this yet, but for fantasy specifically, I personally enjoy a longer book. I love being immersed in the world that the author created. I love really getting to spend a lot of time with the characters to get to know them, and it's hard to do that in a 200 or 300 page book. Now, it can be done. It's very impressive to me when an author is able to do that. But I think with fantasy specifically, especially, The longer format typically for me is much more enjoyable and gets me more invested in the world. And when I'm talking longer, I'm talking like, I don't know, anything 500 pages or above is what I would consider a longer book for fantasy. Chapter 16, long or short chapters. Medium. I know that's not one of my options. I guess I'm gonna have to go with longer chapters. This is a tough one. Shorter chapters, I dislike for the same reasons that I dislike shorter books. I feel like story threads, plot threads are, I don't know, just it feels choppier to me when I'm reading a short chapter fantasy book. But however, I will say that if this is like a sci-fi thriller or a thriller or a horror book, a lot of times the shorter, choppier, more tense chapters do work better. So I think for more of a scary or a thriller type of book, I would go shorter. For fantasy and even science fiction, unless it's like a sci-fi thriller, I would definitely say longer because it allows me to get more immersed in the story and the chapter and whatever is currently going on in the story. Question 17. Name the first 3 books you think of. Golden Fool, Storm of Swords, and Piranesi. I don't know why, but those are the 3 that I thought of first. Chapter 18. Do you prefer books that make you laugh or cry? I don't know if I've said this or if you guys have figured this out without my knowing that you figured it out or not, but I'm a big softie. Big emotional softie, romantic type. And therefore, I love when a book is able to make me cry, and I do cry when I read. Sometimes it's of happiness, sometimes it's because something made me really sad, but I don't get to experience that. Even movies oftentimes aren't able to drag that out of me, and I'm not sure if it's because reading is more personal, but I will say that if a book is able to make me cry, it really proves to me that this author was successful in getting me to the climax of emotional connection to the story. And it doesn't happen very often, but when it does, that book, it's hard for me to forget the way that book made me feel. So I would definitely say that books that make me cry stick with me longer. Chapter 19, Our World or Fictional World. I love escaping to a fantasy world from our world from time to time, but I love my life, even the struggles, the ups, the downs, whatever it is. I love my life, I love my wife, I love my kids, I love my house, I love reading, I love my family, I love my friends, I love my life. So definitely Our World. Question 20, audiobooks, yes or no? Yes. Big time yes. They don't all always work for me. Sometimes a narrator just rubs me the wrong way, or the tone that the narrator is using isn't what I had pictured in my head. Sometimes it doesn't work, but especially with my busy schedule of being in school, being a husband, being a father, working, audiobooking allows me to get a lot more reading done than I normally would get done. And recently, with my wedding just happening and everything like that, I've been extremely tired, and sometimes I can only, like, the end of the night, all the boxes are checked, the homework's done, the necessities are done, and I get to read a little bit. I've only been able to read like 15, 20, 30 pages a night right now before I'm just literally exhausted. So if I wasn't doing audiobooks currently right now in my life, I would not be getting a ton of reading done. So yes, big yes to audiobooks. Question 21. Do you ever judge a book by its cover? Yes, of course I judge a book by its cover. But does that mean I'm right a lot? No. Usually I'm wrong. I think more and more that covers are important, extremely important. And one of the reasons for that, one of the most recent reasons for that is, I don't know where it is, the covers for Realm of the Elderlings. The US covers for Realm of the Elderlings, the mass market paperbacks, are so bad. It's so hard to sell somebody on picking up Realm of the Elderlings, especially if they aren't a big fantasy fan, based off of like, here, try this book out. And it's like this, I've said it before, it's this like rip-off Robin Hood, Paul Rudd looking dude on the cover of Assassin's Apprentice. So I think, you know, in a market that's so saturated and with self-published books entering the market and walking into a Barnes and Noble and feeling extremely overwhelmed and not knowing what you want when you go in there, covers make a big difference. And so I think that taking cover art seriously, if the publishing company will back you or the self-published author has the money or the resources to hire a cover artist that has talent, and I think that that shows, and I think that that definitely is important. And I do judge books by their cover, but that doesn't stop me from reading them. So I will say it like that, I guess. Question 22. Book to movie or book to TV adaptation? I think for fantasy specifically, and a lot of sci-fi, I suppose, but I haven't read enough sci-fi to really say for sure. But for fantasy, I like shows better, especially as a reader. Maybe to a non-reader of the books, the shows or movies would work okay. But I feel like with a lot of movies that get made, things that readers care a lot about get cut out. And not that they shouldn't, but it just makes readers sad, I think. So like for instance, there's, you know, rumors that Mike Flanagan has got his hands on maybe adapting The Dark Tower. I would love this to be a long show. Maybe they start with Wizard and Glass and just kind of take it from there and see what happens. But definitely something for a series like that, of that magnitude. I don't think trying to break it up into movies would do it justice. So I'm going to go with TV adaptations for sure. Question 23. A movie or TV show you preferred to its book? This is a tough one. But I think I'm going to go with... No, let's do this. Gone Girl. I read Gone Girl. It was kind of closer to the beginning of my reignition of reading in my life, and I had heard a lot of amazing, mind-blowing things about Gone Girl, the book, as one of the best thrillers ever written, and one of the best psychological thrillers people have ever read. And I read it, and I thought it was good, but it didn't, like, blow my socks off. Like, when the twist happened, my head was like, well, that was a good twist, but like, was that it, or is there something else? And I don't know, the movie format just works better for me for Gone Girl. And so, yeah, Gone Girl is going to be the answer for that. I think that there's not a whole lot of movies or TV shows I prefer to the book that I've seen recently, so that's the only one that comes to mind. Last but not least is series or standalones. Question 24. Again, the long series are a large time commitment, but I think that the payoff, at least recently, maybe with the help of BookTube and the book community for good recommendations, like I'm not just reaching blindly at series anymore, but I'm going to have to say that the payoff in series just seems better to me than in standalones. But I really enjoy every once in a while, in between series or in between books and series, throwing in a standalone just to get a beginning and end of a story. Because as fantasy and sci-fi readers, we get stuck in so many different series that we want to start, and we want to continue other ones, but want to start other ones. Look, this new nice and shiny thing. That happens a ton. And it's just kind of the nature of reading in this genre. But that's what makes books like Piranesi and Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. I don't know why I'm just suggesting Susanna Clarke books, but they're the first two standalones that came to my mind at the moment. But they were fun reads because they were a contained story, and that was it. I didn't feel the need to, I didn't feel compelled to go find the next thing. I was just content. So overall, though, I'm going to have to go with series as my final answer for my final question. All right, that is going to do it for today's 24 Bookish Questions tag. Thanks again, Sam, for the tag. This was a lot of fun. I wasn't sure what was going to happen just going into this blind, but it was interesting, like setting the camera up and just like going into a video without any planning, really, for my answers, because that's usually not how I roll. So thanks again, Sam, for the tag. I guess I'm supposed to tag 3 people, so let me go with Matt from Basque in the story. I'll go with Christopher Navo from the next chapter, and Ben from Books with Bengus Khan. I would like to see you guys tackle this in rapid form. Maybe do it unplanned like I did, or you can plan it if you want to. And if you guys like this video and you feel like you want to do the tag, consider yourself tagged. Before we go, we of course have to do this video's comedy with Colin, and today's joke is going to be, what's the difference between a poorly dressed man on a bicycle and a nicely dressed man on a tricycle? If you think you know the answer, add it to your comments below. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to like. If you are watching my videos and haven't hit subscribe yet, please do that because that helps me a ton. I hope you are all enjoying what you're currently reading, and remember, you're always welcome in Colin's Corner.